For years, the truth stayed hidden. The victims forgotten. The cases left cold. Until science revealed what time could not. This is Decades in the Dark, where cold cases are brought back to light. August 14, 1993, Glenview, Illinois, a quiet suburban neighborhood north of Chicago. 18-year-old Tricia Pacaccio had just graduated high school. She was smart, social, ready to start college in a few weeks. That night, she'd been out celebrating with friends. Around 1 a.m., she came home and parked in the driveway. She walked up toward the side door of her family's house, but she never made it inside. The next morning, her father opened the door and found his daughter's body lying on the stoop. Tricia had been brutally attacked, stabbed more than a dozen times, her arms and hands slashed as she tried to fight back. It was a frenzied personal assault, right at the threshold of her home. Investigators suspected Michael Gargiulo, the 17-year-old neighbor and friend of Tricia's brother. He had hung around the family often, and Tricia's friends remembered him acting jealous and intense around her. But no solid evidence tied him to the crime. The case went cold. Michael left Illinois for California, but he didn't leave behind his compulsion. His weapon of choice was always a knife. Prosecutors later argued that stabbing gave him what he craved: intimate control, the thrill of overpowering his victims up close. Each attack was sudden, excessive, and personal. 2001, Hollywood, California. 22-year-old fashion student Ashley Ellerin was preparing for a night out. She had plans with actor Ashton Kutcher, who was on the rise in his career. That night, someone watched her home. As she got ready, Michael Gargiulo slipped inside. When she was vulnerable, he attacked, stabbing her more than 40 times. The wounds covered her chest, back, and even her face. The brutality suggested obsession, rage, and overkill. Around 10:45 p.m., Ashton arrived to pick her up. When she didn't answer the door, he looked through a window. On the floor, he saw what he thought was spilled wine. It was blood. Believing Ashley had left without him, Ashton assumed she was upset about him being late and walked away. He didn't call police. The next morning, Ashley's roommate found her body and made the call. 2005, El Monte, California. 32-year-old Maria Bruno had recently moved into an apartment complex. She was a mother of 4, trying to rebuild her life after a divorce. Gargiulo lived nearby. He studied her movements. Then one night, he crept into her apartment while she slept. The attack was explosive. Maria was stabbed 17 times in her bed. The killer mutilated her body afterward, showing his need to degrade and dehumanize. Police described the crime scene as one of the most brutal they had ever witnessed. 2008, Santa Monica, California. 26-year-old Michelle Murphy was home alone when she woke up to find a man on top of her, stabbing her. But unlike the others, she fought back. She kicked, struggled, and in the chaos, her attacker cut himself. He fled the scene, leaving behind his own blood. Michelle survived, and her survival cracked the case wide open. The blood was tested. The DNA profile belonged to Michael Gargiulo. From there, the dominoes fell. Investigators linked his DNA to the unsolved murders of Ashley Ellerin and Maria Bruno. And when Illinois authorities compared the profile to their own case, the threads reached back to 1993. Tricia Pacaccio, the teenage neighbor he murdered outside her own door. It had taken 15 years and multiple victims before science finally caught him. At trial, prosecutors called Gargiulo a serial, psychosexual thrill killer. They explained that stabbing was his signature. It kept him close, it prolonged the suffering, and it satisfied his compulsion for dominance. Every victim was ambushed in or near her home, the place she should have been safest. Ashton Kutcher testified, recalling the night he unknowingly stood outside Ashley's home as her killer slipped away. Michelle Murphy took the stand too, describing how she survived the attack that ultimately saved others by preserving DNA evidence. In 2019, Gargiulo was convicted of 2 murders and the attempted murder of Michelle Murphy. The Illinois case of Tricia Pacaccio was formally tied to him as well. In 2021, he was sentenced to death in California. He now sits on death row at San Quentin State Prison. For the Pacaccio family, it was a cruel truth. The boy next door killed their daughter, walked free for years, and murdered again. Tricia never got to start college. Ashley never got to go on her date. Maria never got to see her children grow up. But Michelle lived. And because she fought back, the blood that Gargiulo left behind brought justice for all the others. Michael Gargiulo thought he was clever enough to cover his tracks. But science remembered what he tried to erase. This is Decades in the Dark, where science brings the past to light. Subscribe for more stories where justice never expires.